Hi guys. OJ on a Sunday. Yes. Yes, Linus, I should be drinking orange juice while doing this, but it gives me heartburn. So I can't. Although I suffer through it for tequila sunrises and screwdrivers. Fuzzy navels. But then sometimes I'm worried about the heartburn, so I get a screwdriver with no orange juice because that's smart. Yep, yep, yep. That's smart. All right, we're still in a huddle where we left off yesterday, so we'll see if I need to fast forward it. That's all right, Linus, because during the stream, I thought I would show the biggest cat in the world, and I did. And the cat stepped on my keyboard and shoved the 6 key completely in, so the whole stream froze, and then knocked my coffee over. So you didn't miss much. You missed a normal Kathy stream where everything fell apart. Okay, there they are. They're in the huddle. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on. Hi, Judge Ito.
During the course of your conversation with Mr. Simpson, you recommended that Mr. Simpson see a particular psychiatrist, didn't you?
I sure did.
And that was a psychiatrist with whom you had personal information about, true?
That's correct.
And that was a psychiatrist with whom you yourself were treating, true?
Yes, that's true.
And Mr. Simpson attended his counseling sessions as far as you knew, true?
As far as I knew.
And as you would look back on Mr. Simpson's marriage with Nicole Brown Simpson, you would interpret that as being a good relationship, wouldn't you?
Totally. What I knew. In the past, you're talking about before 1989?
Well, in 1984, when you were giving a statement about Mr. Simpson's relationship with his wife while they were married, you described it as being a great relationship, a great marriage, didn't you?
That's correct, yeah. That I knew, yeah.
Now, we talked briefly yesterday about an occasion in June of '94 when you visited Mr. Simpson unannounced asking to use a jacuzzi with a friend. Recall that?
I did. That's totally false. Totally false.
Okay. There was an occasion when you came with a friend and asked to use Mr. Simpson's jacuzzi, correct?
Mr. Douglas, I hope you get your facts straight, okay?
Can you answer my question, Your Honor?
I went to play tennis, Mr. Douglas. I was playing tennis. After the tennis game...
Hold on.
You're attacking me. Let me answer
Hold on,
the
Mr.
question.
Shipp. Juries to disregard the
sorry.
last comments both by Mr. Shipp and by Mr. Douglas. Mr. Douglas, ask your question.
Thank you. Don't you recall an occasion when you called Mr. Simpson at about 10 o'clock in the evening and asked to use his jacuzzi? Do you recall that, sir? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Do you recall after he let you use the jacuzzi that about 20 minutes later you called back and asked him to bring you a bottle of wine?
You
Do you
just
recall
said
that, sir?
10 o'clock at night. Didn't you say 10 o'clock at night?
I'm asking, do you recall when you called him back to ask to bring a bottle of wine down to you in the jacuzzi? Do you recall that?
Can I have the times clarified, sir?
1994, June, if not May.
Well, June. I'm talking about the time. Not the day, the time.
It was in the evening, Mr. Shipp. Do you recall that occurring?
I do recall that.
Okay. You were with a friend other than your wife, were you not?
Yes, I was.
She was blonde, was she not?
Who was a friend of my wife's. That's correct.
And you say her name is what?
Lisa Madigan.
Okay. Do you know someone by the name of Angela Spilker?
Angela Spilker.
Yes.
I can't recall.
You have worked in other jobs as an investigator, have you not?
Yes, I have.
And you have done investigative work for friends of Mr. Simpson's, have you not?
Yes, I have.
And there was an occasion when you were asked to look into the background of
Oh,
Angela.
Angela. Yeah, I do remember that. You're correct. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Of Tom
And-
McCullen.
Angela is a German woman, isn't she?
That's correct.
And she's about 6'1", isn't she?
I've never met the woman, but actually, no, I did. She was in a car. I served her, I think.
So you did meet her, right?
Yeah, that's
And
right, I did.
she's a tall blonde, isn't she?
She was in the car. I saw her for about 10 seconds.
And the only time that you've ever seen her was for those 10 seconds?
Yes, that's correct.
And Miss Spilker was not the person who was with you on this occasion when you asked for the bottle of wine?
No. I just gave you her name.
Now let's talk about this alleged conversation that you had with Mr. Simpson on the 13th. What time do you recall that you and he had this alleged conversation about the dream? What time in the evening was
I think it was maybe close. I remember like 11 o'clock, somewhere around there.
it? Do you recall telling Miss Weller that this conversation that you had was shortly past midnight on the 13th?
It could have been. That whole week kind of ran together.
Do you need to see something to refresh your recollection, sir?
Well, yeah, if you have it.
By the way, I'm sorry, one other question about the occasion when you and Miss Madigan were in the jacuzzi. You saw Mr. Simpson's daughter, Arnell, while you and she were in the jacuzzi.
That's correct.
True. Okay. And it was in June, wasn't it?
It was in June. I was disputing the time, not disputing the day.
And I just want to refresh your recollection with a copy of Exhibit D1000. And I just want you to read to yourself the portion that I'm referring to, beginning on the bottom of page 8.
Okay.
After having read Exhibit 1000, is your memory now refreshed that it was just after midnight when you and Mr. Simpson supposedly went up to his bedroom?
I really don't think it was that late because I remember getting home roughly around 12:30, somewhere around there.
Well, do you remember that when you had an occasion to read the draft of Miss Weller's book, that the book had said just after midnight? Do you remember reading that?
I think, yeah, I think I pretty much
And you
did.
do remember that, as you said yesterday, the draft of the book was correct. True?
True.
And it is true, is it not, that your memory of these events was fresher during your conversation with Miss Weller in July or August than it is today?
I'd say you're probably correct.
Because your memory doesn't improve over time, does it?
No, it does not.
So if Miss Weller says that it was just after midnight, that's probably a better reflection of the time frame.
Well, like I said, I'm thinking about when I got home. I'm saying I got home around 12:30. It takes me 45 minutes, almost an hour to get home.
Now, after you and Mr. Simpson were upstairs, according to your version of this, Mr. Simpson began asking you a series of questions, you say. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you say, or is it your testimony that Mr. Simpson asked you about withdrawn? Is it your testimony that Mr. Simpson said that the police had told him about a bloody glove?
Could you repeat that again? please?
Sure. Did Mr. Simpson tell you that the police had told Simpson about a bloody glove?
That's correct.
And did Simpson tell you that the police had told Simpson about some cap that was found?
That's correct.
Did you know that during the entire time that Mr. Simpson was in the custody of the police officers on that day, that they never mentioned anything about a bloody glove?
This is a fact not in evidence. The counsel was attempting to testify. Mr. Simpson was not in custody.
I can link it up, Your Honor, at the appropriate time.
I'm going to sustain the objection to the form of the question as being compound
Very well.
at this point.
Because it's compound.
Compound, it may also assume a fact that's not in evidence. When you use the term custody, that's a very fine term in our terminology here.
Your Honor, I just need to know the ruling so that I can change the question accordingly.
Rephrase the
Compound, I
question.
will rephrase it, certainly.
Rephrase the question.
Certainly. Did you know that nothing about a bloody glove was ever mentioned to Mr. Simpson by the police on June 13th?
Objection, Your Honor. This witness is not competent to testify to the conversation that the defendant had.
Overruled. That's a speaking objection, counsel.
You may answer.
I have no idea what
What do you mean overruled? How is this guy supposed to know what the police actually said to him?
the police had said they found. I'm just going by what OJ mentioned to me.
So you didn't know that.
Have no idea what they found.
And you didn't know that nothing about any cap being recovered was ever mentioned to Mr.
I have
Simpson?
no idea.
If you knew that nothing about a bloody glove was ever mentioned to Mr. Simpson on the 13th by the police, would that cause you to maybe rethink your version of this conversation?
No, I know what I heard. No. No
Okay.
way.
Now, this alleged statement about a dream you were asked about yesterday, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
And you were asked yesterday whether Mr. Simpson allegedly made some statement about DNA coming back. True?
True.
And you were asked yesterday what Mr. Simpson said in response to your indication that it takes DNA 2 months to come back. Correct?
Correct.
And you responded that he kind of jokingly just said, you know, to be honest, Ship, I've had some dreams of killing her. That's what you said yesterday. True?
That's very true.
Isn't it more accurate, Mr. Ship, that Mr. Simpson never supposedly said anything about dreams in response to this question about DNA? True?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. There was some other portion of a conversation that we're not going to go into that came between the statement about DNA that you had said and the statement that you say Mr. Simpson said about the dream. Isn't that correct? You can answer that yes or no. You can answer that yes or no.
That other statement you're talking about came first, if I'm not mistaken.
Before the DNA statement?
If I'm not mistaken.
Well,
I think that may have come first.
would you like to refresh your recollection as to the order of the conversation by reviewing again the statements attributable to you in Ms. Weller's book?
You may. It's 1001.
1,000, yeah. And I asked the witness simply to
You're
read it
first,
to himself
Linus.
so I can ask my next series of questions.
Yes.
Second and third.
Okay, all right.
After having reviewed the excerpt from this book, is your recollection now refreshed?
Okay, it's refreshed. That's correct.
And it's true, is it not, that even according to your version, this alleged statement about the dreams did not directly come in response to the alleged statement about DNA, correct?
That's correct.
There was something else that we're not going into that came between the two.
That's correct.
And when you responded and characterized Mr. Simpson's alleged statement about the dreams, you said that the statement was made jokingly, didn't you?
That's true.
Tell me everything that you saw that gave you an indication that the alleged statement was made jokingly.
Well, he just kind of said, you know, to be truthful, Ship, I've had dreams of killing her.
So he kind of chuckled.
Kind of chuckled, yeah.
Mr. Ship, when were you first informed by anyone representing the prosecution in this case that you would be called as a witness to testify in this matter?
Whenever Phil Van Adder I think it's probably the second time he visited my house. He said I possibly may be called. He didn't say I was actually going to be called.
And give me your best estimate of when it was that Phil Van Adder visited your house the second time.
Can you refresh my memory or someone as to when I met with Marcia and Mr. Darden?
I think you met with Marcia the first time in July
July?
of '94.
Okay, it was probably maybe about 2 or 3 weeks after that.
So 2 or 3 weeks after meeting with Marcia, Phil told you that you would probably be a witness in the case.
Yes, he did.
And did you then tell Phil, knowing that you'd be a witness in the case, about this conversation concerning the dream that supposedly occurred?
Oh, no, I didn't.
How many times after the first time that you met in Marcia's office did you have a conversation with anyone from the prosecution team?
I think I may have had several conversations, maybe 2, 3, maybe with Patty Fairbanks.
How many other conversations did you have with Phil Van Adder other than on the day when your statement was recorded?
Repeat that question.
How many conversations did you have with Phil Van Adder other than the day when your statement was recorded, transcribed?
1, maybe 2.
And they were both at your home?
No, one was at my home, and I think one other time I just called to ask him some kind of question.
Did you just say a minute ago that Phil told you that you may be a witness the second time that he came to your home?
That's correct.
When was the first time?
The first time he came to my home?
Yes.
First time he came to my home was when he brought a subpoena for the grand jury.
You did testify under oath in a grand jury proceeding.
That's correct.
When you testified at the...
Yes, with the court report, please.
No, not again.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to take a brief 15-minute recess at this time. Please remember my admonition to you: don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions, or allow anybody to talk to you about the case. I'm going to ask you to step back into the jury room, please. All right, Mr. Shipp, you can step down. Let's have it quiet in the courtroom, please. We're still in session. All right. We're changing paper.
Yes.
All right, let the record reflect the jury has withdrawn from the courtroom. Mr. Shapiro, good morning.
Yes, Your Honor. While you were directing your attention to counsel at sidebar, I was conferring with Mr. Simpson, and Mr. Shipp continually was staring at us, was mouthing some type of word in some type of attempt to either communicate with me or with Mr. Simpson, was making very unusual facial expressions that would go from a grimace to a smirk, and it was in front of the jury, and I found it myself to be very, very uncomfortable, and I tried to direct my attention away from him. And I wanted to call that to the court's attention.
All right. Ms. Lewis, you had a comment?
Your Honor, I have been sitting at the back of the courtroom in the smaller counsel table during the time that Mr. Shipp was waiting for the sidebar conference to finish. And what I saw was a witness who didn't know where to look. He didn't want to sit there and stare at the jury. He could not stare at the audience, so he was looking around, as is typical of a witness when the attorneys are at sidebar. I didn't see him make any unusual expressions other than those typical and consistent with a witness who is just trying to determine what to do while the attorneys are at sidebar.
All right, well, if we have any luck, maybe Court TV has had the focus on Mr. Shipp during that course. We'll see. All right, let's take a 15-minute recess. Taking care of open 111.
No, they're in the hearing, and I couldn't do it. I left Chapman, and I'll go back hopefully to argue it.
All right, well, you know I very much appreciate your other obligations.
I certainly appreciate that, Your Honor.
All right, counsel, before we resume, I've been advised by members of my staff that they did in fact observe Mr. Shipp during the course of the sidebar conference make some gesture or attempt to communicate with the defendant. And when the jury comes out, I'm going to order them to disregard
Your Honor,
that.
I asked Mr. Shipp during the break if he mouthed something to the defendant while we were at sidebar, and he told me that, yes, in fact, he did, and I intend to ask him on redirect what it was, since it was done in the presence of the jury. I'd like to ask the jury saw it. I'd like to know what it is he said to him. I'd like him to know what it is he said to him.
I don't think that's proper, Your Honor. That's not evidence, and I think the court should simply admonish.
I'm going to admonish, and communications between a witness and a defendant during the course of the trial I don't think are relevant to anything unless there's something highly unusual. I'm not going to get into that in front of the jury. All right, let's have the jurors, please. Okay, hold on. What did he say, Mr. Darden? What's your offer of proof?
He said, tell the truth.
I'd object, Your Honor.
That's exactly what
Mr. Cochran, please. Thank you. All right, let's have the jury, please.
Oh, okay, okay.
You have so many attorneys involved in a case. This, as you will find out, is not their only case that they have, and I allowed one of the attorneys to make a quick appearance in another courtroom in the courthouse, and that attorney was unfortunately delayed, and that was the reason for the longer continuance than I had anticipated. Also, during the course of the last sidebar discussion, it was brought to my attention that there appeared to be some communication or attempted communication between the witness, Mr. Shipp, and persons over at the counsel table, You were instructed to disregard any
Bye,
conduct that you
Tanya.
see like that.
Bye.
It is obviously not evidence. I've instructed the witness not to do anything like that in the future, but please disregard anything that you see of that nature. All right, Mr. Douglas, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Shipp, do you know a woman by the name of Margaret Edwards?
Pardon me?
Do you know Margaret Edwards?
Margaret Edwards?
Yes.
A friend of my mom's?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I do.
There's an objection here. Can you approach yourself?
I'm moving on. Establishing.
All right. He's indicated that's the only question he's going to ask. Overruled.
Now, Mr. Shipp, let's go back to when you had these series of meetings with Miss Weller about this book. And based on your producing the document that is now listed as Exhibit 1001, the first of those meetings occurred on July 13th, did it not?
I think that's correct.
Okay. And you say that you had a series of 6 or 7 meetings that followed.
Approximately.
And each of the meetings occurred at Yamashiro's, a restaurant.
Most of them, I think, we may have had one, I think, at the bicycle shop on Wilshire Boulevard.
When you met at Yamashiro's, you say that you were eating hors d'oeuvres.
Yes, I think sushi or hors d'oeuvres or...
Were you also drinking?
No, didn't
Was
drink.
she drinking?
She had a glass of wine.
Now, it is true, is it not, that sometime in 1994, you and Kathy Randa went out for a quick bite, correct?
Probably several times. We hung out quite a bit.
What about the time when you and she hung out and she asked you to stop
Objection,
dropping...
Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Goes to your state of mind, Your Honor.
352 objection. What's
All right, let's approach.
We are on February 2nd, 1995 right now. Probably hash, Nan.
All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Douglas, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Shipp, as I was asking before the objection, do you recall an occasion in 1994 when you had a conversation with Kathy Randa and Miss Randa asked you to stop dropping by Mr. Simpson's home unannounced?
Never.
It didn't occur in April or May of 1994 over lunch?
No one has ever asked me to stop dropping by that house.
Okay. Let's talk about the nature
For the record, Mr. Shipp, he no longer wants you at his house after today.
of your relationship with Mrs. Simpson. You and she met before the Simpsons were married, correct?
Correct.
And you and she became close, correct?
Good friends.
In 1989, you said that you spoke to her almost daily at one period of time. True?
You mean after the
After the incident in 89.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And you continue to have conversations with her even after she and Mr. Simpson broke up, correct?
Yes, I did.
You would have occasions when you would visit her at her home on Gretna Green in Los Angeles, didn't you?
Twice. I think I was over there twice.
There were other occasions when you'd speak to her on the telephone, correct?
Correct.
You would speak with her when she moved to the location on Bundy, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You considered her a
So he keeps asking questions that proves to me in my mind they were all really good friends. And then he makes it seem like they are absolutely not really good friends.
close friend.
Yes, I did.
During the course of their marriage, you never had an occasion to personally observe any arguments between Mr. and Mrs. Simpson, did
None
you?
whatsoever.
Isn't it true, sir, that you have in the past told Mr. Simpson's friend that if Mr. Simpson weren't around, you might have a shot at Nicole Brown Simpson yourself?
No, I did not.
You've never said that to any of Mr. Simpson's friends?
Excuse me for smiling, but no, I did not. I'm sorry.
It is true, though, that you had an occasion to see Mr. Simpson out publicly a week or two before the deaths, didn't you?
I sure did.
You saw him at a night spot that's called the House of Blues, didn't you?
Sure did.
He was there with his girlfriend, Paula Barbieri, wasn't he?
Correct.
They appeared to be happy to you, didn't they?
He did.
Nothing further.
Any redirect?
Mr. Ship, you've been called just about everything in the book so far, haven't you?
Sustained.
You were subpoenaed to come here and testify, Mr. Ship.
Yes, sir.
You didn't get a lawyer and fight that subpoena, did you?
Overruled.
Well, I got a lawyer first, Robert McNeil, but I didn't fight it.
You knew when you received the subpoena that on an occasion in your life you had a drinking problem. You knew that.
Oh, correct.
Did you tell that to the defendant?
That I had a drinking problem?
Yeah.
I think I may have told Kathy Randa, and I think he knew.
And did you ever tell the defendant that you were suspended from the department for some days?
Oh, no. I don't think I told him that.
But you knew that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you knew Mr. Cochran was Mr. Simpson's attorney, right?
That's correct.
You knew they'd find out about that, didn't you?
Sustained.
You filed a stress claim or went out on stress at some point during your career with the LAPD?
That's right around the time when I had the incident, my one and only incident on the LAPD.
What brought about that incident?
I was just burned out being a cop. I was unhappy. And I guess I was just partying quite a bit.
And when you went to see Kathy Randa one night and beat on her door around 1 o'clock in the morning, what brought about that incident?
I had had some drinks, and I know Kathy was taking this real hard, and I felt really bad, and I wanted to go by there and just talk to her, and Kathy was the type of person, because Kathy also has had a drinking problem, and at times we used to reinforce each other, and she hadn't had any drinks
Watch it,
that I
buddy.
recall during this whole time, that I recall.
I'm very good at
And I
drinking.
think I kind of
don't
went by
have
there
a
and go, hey,
problem.
Kathy, whoops, here I am.
Were there other occasions during the time that you've known Kathy Randa in which you went to her house late at night?
Yeah, I used to, once again, here I was on patrol. I worked in North Hollywood Division, and she had problems with people, and I would go by there and check on her, and if I was off, I'd call other officers and say, would you go check on Kathy Randa? Because she had a problem with some drug people down the street. They were hanging out, her and her neighbors, and I had a friend of mine, Sergeant, go down there, or he was trying to meet with her.
And were there occasions when Kathy Randa would call you late at night and ask you to come over and help her with her drinking problem?
Well, Kathy, now she wouldn't really call me late at night, but there were times when she had her own problems where she had to take leave from Mr. Simpson's office. This is-
You can answer the question.
When she had her own problems, we had to take leave, and we were basically, Kathy and I at one time, of course, until the... We were very close.
Wait.
We reinforced
Wait.
each other. I'm sorry.
Overruled. Answer will stand.
Now, whatever the problem was that Kathy Randa had, you know that problem. You know what that problem is.
Correct.
You see any need to tell the whole world what that problem is?
Not at all.
It's between you and she, isn't it?
Between me and her.
You had a drinking problem and the defendant knew that.
Yes, yes, he did.
But you were still his friend.
Sure. Of course.
He accepted you as his friend nevertheless, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, that's leading to speculation.
I think that's a conclusion that he can call. Overruled.
He accepted you as his friend even though you had a drinking problem. Is that right?
Objection, Your Honor, compound.
Overruled.
I got drunk at OJ's wedding and made a fool out of myself. And he accepted me and thought it was a joke later on.
And you were good friends with the defendant, right?
Yes, I was.
Who arranged the security for Nicole Brown's funeral?
I did. I was contacted by Kathy, and I called a friend of mine who actually did the security. I mean, I didn't do it, but I called him, made the contact.
Did you attend the services at the church?
Yes, I did.
Not everyone was allowed admittance to those services, were they?
Oh, no, they weren't.
Were you admitted into those services?
Oh, yes, I was.
The defendant was there, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
He didn't stop you from entering those funeral services for Nicole Brown, did he?
No, he did not.
You attended the defendant's wedding reception?
Yes, I did.
You discussed his problems, the problems he was having with Nicole when he beat her up in 1989? Is that right?
Yes, I did.
Those are the kinds of things that friends do, correct?
That's correct.
Sustained. Stricken. Jury disregard.
Yesterday, Mr. Douglas asked you if you'd ever had a meal with the defendant. Do you recall that?
Yes, I did.
Had you ever had a meal with the defendant in public?
Not prior to the 89 incident, just him and I, no.
Did you have any meals in public with him after the 89 incident?
Yes, I did.
And when was that? When was the last time?
I had a meal with him on the set of Naked Gun 2.5 in front of everybody.
Were you scheduled to have lunch with the defendant on June 3rd, 1994?
I thought it was a dinner, but I guess if it was lunch, I do remember, yeah, we were scheduled.
Your Honor, I have here what appears to be a Xerox copy of the defendant's personal ballot. May it be marked next to evidence, I believe that would be equal to 11. IOL 12.
I would object, Your Honor, if this were presented by, to this witness with this document.
All right, so wait, proceeding objection, counsel, will be closed. All right, that item will be, however, marked Peoples 11. Excuse me, 12.
The defendant's calendar is marked People's 12, Your Honor?
Correct.
Mr. Shipp, did you indicate a moment ago that you couldn't recall if it was a lunch or a dinner that you were
That's
scheduled to
correct.
have with the defendant?
I thought it was more of a dinner.
Would it refresh your recollection if you looked at the defendant's personal calendar?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You told us that you are somewhat of an actor, is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you acting today?
I do a little extra stuff every now and then.
Okay. So you do get some roles from time to time.
Yeah, I work with Idell. I'm registered with Idell James, and she gets me out every now and then.
Okay. Well, what about your presence here today on the witness stand and your testimony yesterday? Were you just acting here in court today and yesterday?
I'm not that good.
Mr. Douglas suggested that you might be attempting to enhance your public profile. You recall that yesterday?
Yes, I did.
Have you been contacted by hard copies?
No.
Have you been contacted by some of the tabloid television shows?
Yes, I have.
Which ones, if you recall?
Current affair.
Okay. Have you been contacted by the news media?
Yes, I have.
Do you recall which media entities?
2, 7. 2 and 7.
Have you been contacted by some of the paper tabloids?
None.
Have you contacted the tabloids?
No.
Have you contacted the news media?
No, I have not.
Have you offered to give anyone an interview relative to your information or your knowledge surrounding this case?
No, I have not.
You understand, sir, that you can make money doing that.
This is true.
You can get your picture in the paper and on television doing that.
Ruled.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
You're not a rich man, I take it.
Pardon me?
Are you rich?
No. I work for a property management company, and I'm very happy working there.
Well, why didn't you pursue some of these other directions? You know, one of these directions where you might provide the information you gave us here in court today and get paid a hefty sum.
I personally felt that was blood money. I didn't want any part of it. Except for the money that went to Justin and Sydney.
And the money that went to Justin and Sidney is the money that went directly to them from Sheila Weller.
Part of the book.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
What money are you referring to?
Whatever donations that are coming from that book, the sale of that book.
And who do you expect those donations to go to?
To Sydney and Justin,
The defendant's children.
the defendant's children.
How much of that money went to you?
Not a dime.
How much is going to go to you?
None.
Have you obtained any monetary gain at all as a result of the information and knowledge you have relative to this case?
Not so ever.
You told Mr. Douglas yesterday that you brought approximately 40 police officers to Rockingham. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did the defendant ever have any arguments or disagreements with any of those 40 police officers?
Never. O.J. loved him.
Did they appear to feel the same way about the defendant?
Sustained.
Did any police officer ever tell you that they didn't like the defendant?
Sustained.
Did the defendant ever reject any of those police officers off his property?
No.
Did he ever ask them to leave?
No.
And did those police officers make requests of the defendant? Did they ask him for things?
Sustained.
Did the defendant give those police officers anything?
Not all of them, but a few of them autographed pictures at my request.
I'm going to make Fozzie feed me coffee.
And did those officers appear to appreciate that?
Overruled. He was there. He can testify to that.
Yes, they did.
Did you ever obtain the defendant's autograph?
One of the things, being around O.J. and Nicole, I never asked him for anything.
Overruled. He's saying he never something. If he could finish the answer, please.
I never asked O.J. and Nicole for anything, nothing. And to this very day, I do not have an autographed picture of O.J. Simpson. I asked for pictures for friends of mine and kids, never for myself. My kids don't have an autographed picture. My wife, I don't have one.
Mr. Judge.
Did you ever ask the defendant to help you along in your acting career?
Never. Once again, I say I never asked him for anything.
Did he ever help you in any way in terms of your acting career?
Yes, he did. Out of the blue, I get a call from
Overruled.
I get a call from Kushner and Locke out of the blue saying, come down here and pick up a script. So I thought it was some little tiny little extra part, and I get down there, and it's a police part.
Next
No.
question.
Okay. And who arranged for that police part for you?
O.J. did.
I'll ask another question.
Please.
Did you ever discuss the manner in which you obtained that police part with the defendant?
Later on, I said, hey, thanks, O.J.
And what did he say?
He played it off. He was like, hey, no big deal. I got to take my son Dio down, and he hung out with Lawrence Taylor. It was a great day. That's his hero.
These are the things friends do for friends, aren't they?
Correct.
Yo.
Sustained.
The defendant and Mr. Shipp are depicted in each of these photographs. May they be marked people's...
Sure.
Mark 13, 14, and 15, and I will hand them to defense counsel.
13, 14, and 15.
Lawrence Taylor was a different football player. Broke Theismann's thigh. That was hard to say. I watched it. Oh man, it was horrible. Yeah. Oh man, he was so good. LT.
Stay there.
No, it wasn't his thigh.
All right, Deputy McNair, we're going to take our break at this time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the noon hour for lunch. Please remember my admonition to you. Don't discuss the case amongst
OJ took Shipley's son to meet LT. Yes. Sorry.
yourselves, form any opinions about the case, have any contact with anybody else, or allow yourself to be contacted with regard to the case. We'll see you back here at 1:30. Mr. Shipp, you're excused until 1:30. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else except the lawyers. All right, we'll stand in recess 1:30. Mr. Douglas? All right, good afternoon, counsel. All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. Mr. Simpson is again present with his counsel, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Douglas, and Mr. Bailey, people represented by Ms. Clark and Mr. Darden. Counsel, anything we need to discuss before we invite the jurors to rejoin us?
No, Your Honor.
All right, and we have our witness here. All right, let's have the jurors, please.
Not a nice guy. He was amazing. He was GOAT.
All right, the records reflect we've now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel, that Mr. Shipp is still on the witness stand. Mr. Shipp, you're reminded you're still under oath. Good afternoon, Mr. Darden.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Good
You may
afternoon.
continue.
May I continue? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shipp, when we left off, you were telling us about your friendship with the defendant, and you also told us about your acting career, correct?
That's correct.
Now, is there or was there a program called First and 10?
That's correct.
That's a television program?
Yes, it is.
Was that on Fox or?
HBO.
HBO, a cable program?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And what was the basic underlining story?
Oh, OJ was, his character was TD. I think he went from a football player to a coach to administration. I can't remember what the position was on the show.
And is that the show in which the defendant got you a role on?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you played a police officer?
Once again, yes, I did.
Okay. Let me show you a photograph marked Exhibit
Exhibit 14.
Bartlow's a little slow today, Your Honor. Pay attention. Exhibit 14. Light it up. Can you move the glass? Could you just step down for a moment, Mr. Shipp? Is that a photograph of you and the defendant there?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and that's you smiling there?
Yes.
And his arms are around you?
Yes, they are.
Were you shooting a scene at that particular time?
No, we weren't.
What was going on in this photograph?
I remember, I think the director, Stan, made some kind of a joke. Something like, someone blew a line or something like that, and OJ, we thought it was funny. And that's when he hugged me.
Defendant hugged you, huh? Okay. And showing you what has been marked as Exhibit 15. That's the defendant there on the right side of the photograph. On your right side?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, he is.
Okay. And that's you in the middle?
That's me.
And who is the woman on the left side of the photograph?
That's my wife, Nina.
How long has she been your wife?
Almost 14 years, 13 and a half years.
Okay. And where was this photograph taken?
At the Simpson house on Rockingham.
Okay. And was there some type of affair or social occasion going on there?
I think it was his 40th birthday.
Are you invited to his 40th birthday party?
Yes, I was.
And so was your wife?
Yes, she was.
Thank you. Please take the witness stand. Okay. And you have other photographs with the defendant, don't you?
Yes, I do.
And you went to his wedding?
The reception part, not the private.
By the way, your wife has been present here in court throughout your testimony, is that correct?
That's correct.
She's here now?
Yes, she is.
You indicated on cross-examination yesterday, that is when Mr. Douglas was asking you questions, that the defendant's statement about having dreams came before the defendant asked you how long DNA takes to come back? Was that your testimony?
Not questions asking him if that's what it was. Overruled.
I'm sorry, Mr. Darden,
Okay.
can you repeat that again?
Okay. At some point, the defendant asked you, how long does it take DNA to come back, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And he also made a statement about having dreams about killing Nicole, is that correct?
That's correct.
Which came first, the DNA statement or the killing statement?
The DNA statement came
Okay.
first.
Now,
Your Honor, I think you just spoke when he said the killing statement.
Dream statement.
the dream about killing statement. Okay. That statement came second or first?
I'm sorry, one more
Okay.
time.
Which came first? The question about when DNA
Oh, the
comes
DNA
back?
came first. I'm sorry. Yeah, DNA.
And then at some point, the defendant made the comment about having some dreams about killing
That's
Nicole?
correct. Right.
Now, was there some conversation between those two statements?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
That's why I was
And-
confused earlier. I'm sorry.
Okay. And you didn't tell us about the conversation between those two statements, did you?
I was ordered not to.
Who ordered you not to?
Well, actually, you informed me that the judge, Ito, said not to talk about it.
Okay, so you weren't trying to mislead anyone.
Oh, no. I was not.
You were trying to comply with the court's
I
order.
was trying to comply with the court's order.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, just so you don't speculate as to what that is, there's something that transpired that I've determined is not relevant to this case, and I've ordered the witness not to testify about. It is not to have any impact upon your evaluation of this witness. Mr. Durden.
And to go back and discuss the 1989 incident briefly, Mr. Shipp, I believe you told Mr. Douglas today that that the defendant seemed to accept responsibility for the beating.
Yes, at one point he did.
Okay.
Mr. Farlow. Mr. Darden.
Thank you, Your Honor. So up to some point, or at some point, the defendant accepted responsibility for the beating?
Yes, he did.
Did he continuously accept responsibility for the beating?
Can you be a little bit more exact? Did he
Okay, well, let me put it to you this way. You had a conversation with him that first week of January, correct?
Correct.
Did he immediately accept responsibility for the beating?
Not immediately, but after we had talked for a while, O.J. made a remark to me. He said that he didn't think that he was a batterer, and I explained to him. I said, "Hey, man, you hit her. She's got marks. You're a batterer." And that's when he kind of agreed and said, "I guess you're right."
Did you ask the defendant to admit that publicly?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say?
Like I said, at first he was very resistant because he thought it was going to ruin his image. He thought that he would lose the Hertz, and he didn't want anything to do with it. And I explained to him that a lot of times if you come forth with women's groups and admit you have a problem, that people will welcome you more.
Okay. And what did he say he would do?
He said, he'd think about it, and it sounded pretty good to him.
And did you have a conversation with him the next day or the day after that?
Yes, I did.
And what did the defendant say then?
He said he had received advice, I don't know who from, that that was not a good idea.
Answer will stand.
Oh,
Sir, I didn't hear the answer, Your Honor.
Answer was he didn't know who from, but it wasn't a good idea.
So the next day, the defendant told you that this notion about accepting responsibility publicly was not a good idea?
right, that he wasn't going to do it.
You also told Mr. Douglas that you felt that you were treated like a servant by the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And what did you mean? What did you mean by that?
I said I was like a servant to him, like a lot of people, and meaning that I did not mind doing anything I did for OJ because I idolized him. And I did it with open arms. And a lot of people were the same way.
So you did things for him.
Did a lot of things.
Whatever it was he asked of you, you did it.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. Now you told us yesterday that you ran vehicle license plates for him.
Overruled.
Is that correct?
Pardon me?
You told us yesterday that you ran license plates for the defendant?
For the defendant, that's correct.
Okay. And you contacted the detective on the 89 beating case on his behalf, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you do other things for the defendant? That is, other things in your official capacity as a police officer?
Yes, I did.
What kinds of other things?
What, you mean as a police officer or
Yes.
on my off-duty time?
Okay, well, as a peace officer.
As a police officer on duty, other than talking to the detective about signing off the report, no, not on duty.
Okay. Well, how about things that you did in your capacity as an off-duty police officer?
Yes, I did quite a bit.
Okay, and what types of things did you do there?
There was one time in particular when OJ called me when Jason and some friends, I think when he was around 16 years old, had used some cocaine, and Jason had a seizure. And OJ was very upset that this happened, and he wanted to find out who sold the cocaine to him and his friends. And he set up a meeting in the neighborhood with a bunch of the parents.
Okay. Anything else?
There was also another time when I was at home when I received a call from Rolf Bauer stating that Jason was...
Sustained. Sustained.
Well, after you received this call from Ralph Bauer, did you do something?
Yeah, I went to OJ's house because Jason had apparently taken a bat to OJ's life-size statue in the backyard.
And you went to speak to Jason Simpson?
Yes, I did.
Okay. To counsel him?
Yes, I did.
And to go back to Monday, June 13th, that would be the Monday following the murders, is that correct?
That's correct.
The day following the murders?
That's correct.
And you told Mr. Douglas that you were in the television room or the TV room at Rockingham, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And there are 4 television sets there?
I think it's approximately 3 or 4.
And were all those television sets on while you
Yes,
were
they
there?
were.
Was there news footage and news commentary regarding the murders?
On every station.
Did you see the defendant on TV that day?
Yes, I did.
Was he in handcuffs at some
At
point?
one particular time, yes, he was.
And was he released?
Yes, he was.
Those handcuffs were taken off?
Yes, they were.
And this happened on Monday, June 13th, is that right?
That's correct.
And was the defendant present as you watched the 3 or 4 different television sets?
Yeah, he sat there with us.
Did you see film footage of the murder scene on television that day?
I do believe there was, at that particular time, I think they were focusing more to the fact that OJ had been arrested, but they did flash back a little bit to the scene.
Okay. Did you see news footage of the bodies being taken away?
Yes, I did.
Was the defendant there while this news footage was on?
Yes, he was.
And while you were watching television in that room with the defendant, did he ever ask you who you thought killed Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman?
Never.
Did he ever express any sadness or sense of loss because Nicole was gone?
I didn't see it because of Nicole. No, I didn't.
You told Mr. Douglas that before the defendant told you about the dreams he'd had of killing Nicole, that he chuckled. Correct?
Yes, he did.
Did he really chuckle?
He chuckled.
And this was the same day that the bodies were removed.
Same day. That evening.
Same day that you and he saw photographs or film footage of the murder scene. Is that right?
That's correct.
And he chuckled.
Yes, he did.
You told Mr. Douglas that you did not go to football games with the defendant. Is that right?
That's correct.
Have you ever been to New York City?
Never.
Have you lived in Los Angeles your entire life, pretty much?
My entire life.
If you know, where was the defendant usually during football season?
Either in New York or doing some kind of a show, football show.
And
About a year,
what
I
would
guess?
he be doing
I
in
don't
New
know.
York if you knew?
Commentating.
Commentating on what?
Football games.
He was an NFL commentator. Is that right?
That's correct.
So while football games are being played during football season, he wasn't even in California, was he?
No, he wasn't, unless there was a game that he was doing in Los Angeles, a Raider game.
And did you go to college, Mr. Shipp?
Yes, I did.
Where'd you go?
I went 2 years at East Elginga College, and I transferred over to USC.
USC, the same college the defendant went to. Huh?
That's correct.
You play football there?
I went out for the team.
Didn't make it?
Wasn't good enough.
You also told us that while employed as a police officer, you testified 50 to 60 times. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You also told us that you were given some training in how to appear in court. Is that right?
That's correct.
What was the most basic thing you were taught in the police academy with regard to how to testify?
Never
The gun goes that way.
tell a lie.
And have you attempted to follow that training today?
To this very day.
And are you telling us the truth today, Mr. Shipp?
The absolute truth.
Thank you, sir.
Recross?
Mr. Shipp, were you told in the academy that it was proper to mislead a pending investigation of murder charges?
As a police officer?
Correct.
Of course, yeah, I was told that.
That it's proper to mislead?
No, I mean, no, that you shouldn't. Right.
Were you told in the academy that it was proper for a witness to an incident to lie to investigators who were investigating an incident?
No, I was not told to do that.
Now, you mentioned that you made a fool of yourself at Mr. Simpson's wedding reception, didn't
That's
you?
correct.
And you made a fool of yourself after you got drunk, didn't you?
Well, to me, I mean, no one, there's nobody else that can actually, to me. I mean, I was slurring my words. That, to me, that's making a fool out of yourself. No one else said, hey, get this bum out of here.
Well, once you got drunk, didn't you then begin making more of a fool of yourself with your conduct?
As far as I was concerned.
You did.
If I was drunk and I was not able to speak like I would speak when I'm sober and I know that I'm slurring, to me that's embarrassing.
Well, at Mr. Simpson's wedding reception, isn't it true that you got drunk and got into an argument and fight with one of the other guests that were there?
One of the guests?
Yes.
No, I did not. That's not what I meant by fool.
Now, you also said that when you got drunk, this past year, you went over to Miss Randa's house at 1 o'clock in the morning to say, whoops, here I am.
That's not why they think you're crazy.
Correct?
Did you think that you wanted, withdrawn, did you think that Miss Randa wanted to see you in all of your drunken glory at 1 o'clock in the morning outside of her home unannounced?
Well, I felt I'd done so many favors for OJ and all his friends, and I was close to Kathy, that it wouldn't, I mean, she would understand herself, okay, having a problem, which
So-
she had understood in so many times before.
So you wanted her to see you in all of your drunken glory.
Yes, I did.
And were you too drunk to call her on the telephone and say that you're coming over so you can see me in all of my drunken glory?
No, I was not.
Did you drive over there drunk?
Did I drive over? Yes, I did. I was drunk.
That wasn't very smart, was it?
I was bad.
Did you drive home after leaving her house 1 in the morning drunk?
Yes, I did.
That wasn't very smart either, was it?
No, I was not. I'm not proud of it. I told you I'm not perfect, Mr. Douglas.
Answer the question. Thank you, sir.
That makes me sound so mean.
Isn't it true, sir, that some of the police favors that you performed were performed for Mrs. Simpson? Correct?
Yeah, quite a bit. That's true.
You ran a license plate for Mrs. Simpson's request, didn't you?
Also, yes, I did.
Not for Mr. Simpson, did you?
Yes, I did.
Didn't she want you to help her to remove some tenants out of an apartment that she owned in the South Bay?
Yes, you did.
And you then ran a license plate for her under those circumstances, didn't you?
That wasn't the only time I ran license. I ran license plates quite a bit when they had people coming over the house that they didn't know who was hanging around. Ship, you check this out, please? We got people driving around.
Were you violating any official rules or procedures of the Los Angeles Police Department by running a license plate for a personal friend?
Yes, I was.
Now, isn't it true, sir, that the Brown family was responsible for arranging for security at Nicole Brown Simpson's funeral?
I was contacted by Kathy originally, not the Browns.
The occasion
already
that you
fired.
could think
He's
of,
gone.
the only occasion that you could think of in your 26-year friendship with Mr. Simpson when you and he ate together was on the set of Naked Gun 2.5, correct?
That's one.
And that was a meal that took place during a casting break, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
And there were other members of the cast that were also sitting around enjoying the meal, wasn't there?
Our lunch was isolated. It was just he and I, and then there was two people that came to get some football signs, some alumni from USC that joined us. But originally it was just he and I.
Now, you mentioned that in 1989 you attempted to arrange for the charges against Mr. Simpson to be signed off on.
Yes,
correct?
I did.
In 1989, you had worked as an instructor at the academy.
That's
Did you
correct.
not? And you were an instructor working and teaching domestic violence. Did you not?
That's correct.
And you were aware in 1989 that whenever allegations of domestic abuse were filed and there was some independent corroboration, that the charges had to be brought formally, correct?
That's correct.
So you knew in 1989 that there was nothing that you could personally do to obviate the filing of charges. True?
That's what I believed.
Now, you said earlier to Mr. Darden that you had never asked Mr. Simpson for anything. Remember saying that?
That's correct.
You did ask on occasion to play tennis on his tennis court.
Okay, yes, that's true.
And when you were at his home in the dark with the blonde, who wasn't your wife, who's here in court, you did ask that he bring you a bottle of wine, didn't you?
That's correct.
And did she drink the wine by herself?
No,
Or did you?
no, we drank it. OJ came out and stayed with us because he thought she was real attractive.
Wasn't O.J. living his own life at the time that you came by unannounced and asked to use the
I didn't
jacuzzi?
come by. Can I answer these questions? I didn't come by unannounced. I was there. See, he's forgetting. I was there we got there at 7 o'clock. played
Why don't you let me
tennis.
ask the questions and you can
I'm
answer my
trying to
questions?
answer it.
Okay.
Sorry.
You first called Mr. Simpson, and he was on the phone when you called, correct?
When I buzzed it, right.
And you asked Mr. Simpson to use the jacuzzi, correct?
Yes, I've never gotten in his jacuzzi.
And he asked you whether or not the jacuzzi was still on. Remember that?
I think you're correct.
And you informed him that the jacuzzi was on because you had been there earlier that day, true?
Earlier that day?
Correct.
No, I wasn't there earlier that day. I was playing tennis at 7 o'clock.
So he then allowed you and your blonde friend to use the jacuzzi.
That's
true?
correct.
And then about a half hour later, you called him back.
That's correct.
And asked for the bottle of wine.
That's correct.
And it was sometime while you and this friend of yours was in the jacuzzi that you happened to see his daughter, Arnell Simpson.
That's correct.
Now, you suggested earlier that you had only seen this woman, Angela Spilker, but for 10 seconds on one occasion.
That's correct.
That's not true, is it, sir?
He misspoke. When he first called OJ, it was from that little box outside of the gate. He tried to buzz in.
It's
And
the
OJ was on a
gospel
call on the phone.
This is beyond the redirect.
It's true.
If it is, Your Honor, I'd allow the court to allow me to reopen for this brief area, which might be beyond.
It's real tangential. It's real tangential.
May I, at sidebar, tell the court?
Please.
All right, this is an excellent breaking point. I gotta be at work soon. Although I could just skip it and keep doing OJ. Guys, thank you so much for coming out to see OJ. I think I'm going to continue doing them on the weekends, unless Saturday morning I'm just too tired. We'll see. But thank you so much. Let's see what we start with tomorrow morning. I don't know if it's going to be McDonald or Clips or what, but you know what? As soon as I know, you'll know, because I'll know like at 4:20. Thanks, guys, for coming out. Hi, Bill. I will see you again really, really, really soon. Have a great Sunday. Yes, Bill, just press rewind. Put it in your little car VHS rewinder. You know, you put the VHS in and you slap it down.